In this video, I show you how to make this paper bead cuff bracelet. For this project, I used dark gold paper from my local hobby store, 2 thin metal bangles, 20 gauge wire and white glue. So take both bangles, make a cut in them. Next, make small loops on both ends of both bangles with your needle nose pliers. Use the topmost part of your pliers to get smaller loops. You want to have both loops facing inward like this. In this picture, you see that the loops are no longer positioned inside the bangle. In order to make sure that the loops will not dig into your wrist when wearing the finished cuff, we need to turn them slightly outward. To do this, place one point of your pliers inside the loop with the other point on the outside of the loop, as you see here. Gently bend back the loop until the loop is centered on the end of the bangle instead of on the inside of it. Once you've completed all your loops, lay the bangles aside and make the paper beads. To make the oval paper beads, you'll need an 18 to 22 inch piece of paper. I suggest thin cardstock or paper. Thick cardstock will make a cuff that's way too bulky. I wanted my beads to have some marking or pattern on them, so I used 2 contrasting papers, one dark gold and the other dark espresso brown. I sellotaped the papers together. You can of course use glue. I then cut the paper into a couple of strips and taped that together. So I had a 22 inch piece to work with. The paper beads are made from rolled up elongated paper triangles. These triangles are drawn on the paper and then cut out, and this is how to do that. I placed tick marks at 1 inch intervals along the bottom and top edge of the paper. This is a diagram which shows in steps how this is done. So once you've made your 1 inch tick marks along the bottom and top of your paper, starting at 0 in the left bottom corner, draw a line to the 1 inch mark at the top. Then draw a line from the top of the paper at the 1 inch mark to the bottom at the 2 inch mark. That's your first triangle. Continue in this way until you have covered the entire paper. As you can see, you'll end up with upside down triangles too. Throw away the beginning and ending triangles as they're only half triangles and they're not usable in this project. I needed 17 beads for my bracelet, so that meant 17 triangles. You may find that you need more or less than I did, depending on the thickness of your paper. So cut out your triangles with scissors or an X-Acto knife. Okay, so this is the first triangle. Continue to cut out the rest of the triangles. Once you've done that, take a toothpick, place it at the base of the paper triangle and begin to roll up the triangle. Do not add any glue at this point. You don't want to get glue on the toothpick. After a couple of rolls, dab a little glue and continue to roll. Then dab some more glue at the halfway point and continue to roll. Dab glue on the entire last 3 inches of the triangle. Don't overglue or glue will squeeze out as you roll, and you don't want that to happen. When the triangle is completely rolled up, you will have an oval shaped paper bead. Now this is how I assembled the bracelet together. Feed some wire through the first bead. Hook one end of the wire over one of the bangles and wrap the wire once around the base of the bead. You can see here where the wire has been folded over the bangle and wrapped once around the base of one end of the bead. This graphic demonstrates how that's done. Add the other bangle and attach it to the other end of the bead using the same technique to fix it in place. This shows how the wire is looped once over the bangle, then wrapped once around the base of the bead. The leftover wire has been snipped off. You will find that the cuff bracelet is not stable at this time, and you'll be able to manipulate the first couple of beads into position at the beginning of the parallel bangles. Be sure to snip off any leftover wire as close to the bead and always to the outside of the bracelet as you can. Press any remaining bits flat into the wrapped neck with your pliers. That way you're going to avoid any sharp bits on the inside of the bracelet. This is what I meant by the outside of the bead. And this is what I meant by the inside. Don't leave wire ends on the inside, always wrap around until they're on the outside, otherwise they'll scratch your arm. Keep adding beads until you fill up the bangles. As I said before, it took 17 beads for my bangle. The number of beads you need may be different due to differences in the weight of paper or cardstock that you choose to use. Thinner paper will give you thin beads unless you make your triangles longer, and thicker paper will give you fatter beads. But I tried to use only thin cardstock or just use paper. If the beads are too thick, they'll take up too much room and they'll be bulky. And even though the cuff bracelet is open-ended, which gives you more arm room, it still won't sit right on your arm. As I assembled the bracelet, I noticed that some of the beads were slightly longer than others and made my bracelet a little lopsided, as you can see in this shot. So if that happens to you, simply snip a little off one or both ends of the beads so that all the beads are exactly the same height. Or you can, alternate long ones with short ones. I did it both ways and both cuff bracelets look great. One had a casual kind of loosey goosey look, and the other just looked, polished. And the polished looking one is the one that I photographed for this video. Bon appetit!